You can keep the quiz for now, but we'll go over the quiz. So the first question is, if you're not doing these 5 or 6 things first, then this is where you want to start with this first question, because anything after that really is more detailed and more significant. But if you're not working out consistently, if you're not eating supportively, if you're not having a post-workout shake, if you're doing strength training, if you're not eating protein consistently with every meal, if you're not having at least some fish oil or essential fatty acids and not taking in enough water, the first place you want to start is by getting these 6 things correct. You get these 6 things correct and you do it consistently, more than likely you'll lose the weight you want to lose. You'll have a fast enough metabolism because the working out will help speed up the metabolism. If you're doing strength training, that'll help with long-term metabolism. If you're doing aerobic work, it'll help with short-term metabolism. So how many people here have yes to most of them?
All of them? Most. Yeah.
Most. All right. That's good. If you're doing those, then some of the things that we'll go over today might be applicable to you. Question 2 is true or false? Thyroid hormone is the only hormone that matters for metabolism. True or false? False?
False.
All right. Your body fat has no control over your metabolism. True or false?
False.
True or false? Exercise is the best way to increase metabolism. We'll be going over this. Generally, yes. True or false, or it depends. Insulin levels are a key determinant in whether or not your metabolism speeds up or down. It depends. So what is metabolism? If you type in metabolism and you Google image it, these are some of the things that you come up with. It's a very complicated process, and as you can see, whenever you eat protein, carbs, or fat, there's different metabolic processes that happen. That second picture to the right shows what happens in the mitochondria with fat. There's a lot of steps, there's a lot of intermediary steps. What I'm trying to get at is it's complicated. So there's a lot of factors involved. What is metabolism? Metabolism, though, what we generally think of is the total amount of energy produced by your body on average. Many things determine one's metabolism, include short and long-term factors. These include, I listed 13 things here, but really there's a lot of things that could go into them because these are umbrella terms. So I should have had this as a question. True or false? Genetics is probably the most important factor in one's metabolism. That's true. When you see obesity, there's a lot of different factors involved. You have lifestyle factors, you have the environment, you have exercise, you have all those things. But genetics is a big thing. It's probably the biggest thing. So with one's parents, what's hereditary is height. If you have the same genes, is about 90%, 80 to 90% of coming from genes. One's weight is also about 80 to 90% of. So there are things you can do, obviously, and you can work hard to change that. But in general, if you just ate, you didn't do much, your weight is pretty much determined by your genes. So there's obviously lifestyle factors and everything else I'll list and discuss, but genes are a huge key to that. In the references sheet on the back page, there's a documentary called Why Are Thin People Not Fat? And it basically shows, I think, 5 to 10 people who they had them eat double the amount of calories that they should have for a month and see what happens to them. And there was a vast difference between what happens to them. Some people gained a lot of weight, some people gained a little weight, some people gained muscle even though they didn't work out. But most of the people didn't want to overeat just because even though they had access to as much food as possible and they were told to, some people couldn't do it because they were just so full and stuffed. So when I say genes are a huge factor, that's what it comes down to, is how sensitive your body is to these satiety signals, to insulin, to thyroid, things like that. So yes, thyroid isn't the only thing that controls metabolism. Lifestyle, are you active or do you exercise with enough intensity? So if you're not active, if you're sitting all day, obviously that's going to slow down your metabolism. It's going. Environment, do you work and live in an environment that supports healthy eating? If your commute's an hour and a half each day, if you're sitting 8 to 10 hours at work, if you don't have a gym at work, if you have limited food options, environment definitely plays a part. Willpower is probably what most people think of when they think of losing weight is willpower. I don't have enough willpower. And willpower is definitely important and plays a role, but it's not always the most prominent thing. Age will slow down your metabolism. Most people I know after 30 or 40, 45, they hit a certain cusp and all of a sudden their metabolism slows down. Generally what has happened is you've lost a decent amount of muscle up to that point if you haven't been working out, and your hormonal profile changes. So women, estrogen changes and then they become more sensitive, or they're more at risk with insulin resistance. Men, their testosterone levels drop, their DHEA levels drop, so their hormones change, and those hormones that they've had start to drop and they decrease muscle mass. So one of the most important.
It's drastic though as women, right?
It's as drastic, but it's not. It doesn't happen until later. Women, it starts earlier. Men is later. Hormonal issues. So if you have insulin resistance, then even if you're working out, if you're eating right, it'll be very hard to lose fat. Your metabolism basically slows down. Leptin resistance. How many people here have heard of leptin? Do any of you know what it is? So, okay, you all answered false for your body fat has no control over metabolism, and you answered false.
Yeah.
Why is that? Anyone? You had true. So it's false because leptin. So when you think of fat in your body, you don't really think of it as being an active endocrine source. So basically, endocrine means hormonal. It releases hormones. Leptin is the hormone that's released from your body fat. So if you've ever gone on a crash diet, if you've lost weight and then gained it all back, one of the biggest reasons why is because of leptin. It acts as a thermostat to tell you how much your body fat your body has. And so what happens, there's two things that happen. One is, and this will slow down your metabolism dramatically. So if you have a high level amount of fat and it starts to drop, so at a high level amount there's a certain amount of leptin that's released. As you start to drop or you go on a crash diet, leptin levels drop, which means the signals that are telling your brain how much to eat are less. So what happens is you become ravenously hungry. This can happen after a week on a crash diet, or if you've been dieting down and you've lost weight pretty consistently, but then all of a sudden you decide to go on vacation and you just allow yourself to relax for a week. And then when you come back from vacation, you're like, oh, what's another week? I was so bad, blah, blah, blah. I didn't gain any weight. And so you stop working out, you get busy from vacation, all of a sudden leptin levels are still low. And so because your body fat levels are low, the signal's not getting to your brain, and your brain's basically telling your body you want to eat all the time. And what it craves the most, what the signals it sends are carbs. It sends carbs. So if you have insulin resistance, it's almost guaranteed you have leptin resistance. So do you understand what I mean when I say resistance?
Uh-huh.
What does it mean?
That your body resists.
It's not reacting. It's not reacting to the insulin that's released. Same thing happens with leptin. So the part of your brain that sees how much leptin is in your body, those signals don't get to the brain. So at a point like insulin resistance, you'll have high leptin levels if you're overweight generally, or if you have insulin resistance. Like I said, they go hand in hand. Your body's not getting the signal that you have enough fat stores, you're not going to starve to death. Basically, think of leptin as anti-starvation hormone, but your body's not getting the signal, and because of that, you're always hungry. So even though you're overweight and whatnot, same thing happens with insulin. Your body's not reacting to the insulin, so your blood sugar is low. So because your blood sugar is low, you want to eat more. So they go hand in hand, but leptin is more important for long-term weight management. So other issues, I could have gone on with hormonal issues, but those are the main ones for metabolism, is also low thyroid.
Do they have tests to determine whether you have leptin resistance? Or
you can do insulin test or blood glucose levels. Most blood glucose level tests, though, are too high. They're about 20-30% over. So they say normal is between, or for fasting blood glucose is up to 99, and really you should be optimally 70 to 80. So if you're anything over 80, you already have signs of insulin resistance, which means you probably already have signs of leptin resistance. So there isn't necessarily a test for leptin resistance because it happens in the brain a little bit more, and they're not even sure where yet. They sort of are guessing, but yeah.
So you take the glucose test, and then
I would take the glucose test. It's a fasting glucose test. So basically, you fast for 12 hours. You take the test in the morning after you wake up. You see your morning glucose. If it's high, if it's above 80, generally you're already starting to have signs. You can also do a glucose challenge test. So basically, you ingest 100 grams of pure glucose, see what happens to your blood sugar after you do it. And so it should look like a spike and then come back down. If it looks like a spike and then stays up, your body's not clearing it out as well, and you're probably having issues then also. Low thyroid. So low thyroid for most people, I know people on thyroid medication, and they typically give them T4, which is the inactive form of thyroid, which then your body has to convert to active T3. T3 is what speeds up your metabolism. When someone says they have a fast metabolism, they're talking about active T3. The issue with that, though, is there's about 12 things that can go wrong with thyroid, and your doctors will only check for one. So if you have that one and they give you Synthroid and it works, good. If not, you're left wondering why it's not working. There's 12 other reasons. I give you a resource later if you want to purchase it. I don't know how much it is because I had purchased another program and this came along with it. But it was 5 hours of this doctor basically explaining all the things and what to do to your doctor. So basically ask him for a certain thyroid panel, and then from there he actually tells you what issue you might have. But that's on you. Like I said, if you're not doing the first 6 things, don't even worry about that. Stress. Stress releases hormones that make you hungrier. Sleep deprivation also does that. So sleep deprivation and stress to me are one and the same, because both increase cortisol, both make you less insulin sensitive, both release ghrelin levels, which make you hungrier, crave carbs more. But it's not you don't crave broccoli or sweet potato. You crave you crave the bad stuff. Dieting. Being on a diet typically will slow down your metabolism. So if you start off very heavy and you've been dieting for a month, your metabolism isn't going to slow down that much. If you're 5 pounds away from your ideal weight and you've worked your tail off, more than likely your metabolism is going to be slow. If you've ever seen bodybuilders, the day of the competition, not after they've eaten, but the day of, they all typically feel like crap because their metabolism is in the drain, their hormones are all screwed. The day of, they may look good on stage, but all of them feel like crap, and their lowest energy levels. They don't want to do anything, which is why if you ever see them after, they gain like 10 pounds in 2 days because they eat like mad. They retain water. They do everything. So people on stage look good, but typically a couple days after, they've gained about 10 pounds. Some people don't, not all, but I would say about 80 and 90%. Weight loss, the more weight you lose, the slower your metabolism will become. This is because of leptin. So there's ways that you can sort of get around that, but it takes more work. Foods you eat, high fructose and lectin levels. So if you drink a lot of soda, if you eat a lot of grains all the time, and your body's sensitive to those things, your metabolism will slow down because it'll ramp down your thyroid hormones. Vitamin and mineral deficiencies, an example is low vitamin D makes you more susceptible to metabolic disorders. Metabolic disorders means insulin resistance. So generally, most people are deficient in vitamin D. We don't get enough sun. We put a lot of sunscreen on. So most people are more susceptible to insulin resistance because of that. Uncontrolled inflammation is probably the biggest thing. Inflammation is exacerbated by excess fat. So the more fat you have, the more inflammation you have throughout your body, and it's uncontrolled. And that makes it harder for your body to get the signals. It makes inflammation basically makes everything up there already worse. So if you have those issues already and you have high inflammation, it'll make everything worse, including the willpower.
Wait, I'm sorry. What is inflammation? Like, are you talking about your?
No, inflammation by your cells.
It's
interleukin 6. It's tumor necrotic factor alpha. So basically, the more fat you have, the more it. So interleukin 6, inflammation in general, is an immune response. It's basically telling your body that it's stressed out, and it goes to protect you. So in small amounts, if you hit your elbow or something like that, you'll get inflammation.
Right.
And the purpose of that is to both increase blood flow, but to also to get more nutrients to that area and to protect it. Uncontrolled inflammation is when you have that on a systemic level. If you have arthritis, if you have heart disease, if you have obesity, if you have basically any chronic condition you can think of, it's all exacerbated by inflammation, and everything, the connective thing with all of it is you have high inflammation, which is why exercise works with so many diseases, because it helps to decrease inflammation, which is why fish oil is so good, because it helps to decrease inflammation. It works on that one factor, and because of that, it helps with everything else. And basically all these things are interconnected. So when you age, you'll have hormonal issues. If you're stressed, you'll have hormonal issues. If you live in a poor environment and you're not getting enough food or exercise, then you'll have hormonal issues. So it all goes back to, they're all connected some way, shape, or form.